Our next speaker is Frank Barone.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I was thinking about what I could share that could help us collaborate better as a team on research projects. And I just went through something quite interesting for myself, from my own experience, and that's being involved in a summit that's associated with Alzheimer's disease related diseases. It was quite inspiring to me. I learned so much throughout it. Some of the world experts involved in research were there. I was lucky enough to be invited because people here worked with me originally, and we were able to put together an institute associated with white matter through a trust. Deborah Gustafson, actually Herman Marino, Allison, and Howard Crystal were involved originally in that. And so I was invited as being involved in the institute to attend, and so I'm going to share what I learned anyway. Biomarker discovery and possible therapeutic interventions. I'm a basic scientist. I do work on modeling cerebrovascular disease, stroke, hypoperfusion that's associated with things like hypertension, diabetes, changes in atherosclerosis, the importance of diet, obesity, even activity now is becoming so important, as we've heard from the introductory courses, lectures. So it's important to recognize that cerebrovascular and metabolic health are equivalent to brain health and resilience. This has been going on for decades, but this type of work is really coming out now, showing the type of efficacy that even regular exercise has on the brain and its functioning, in addition to what it does at the periphery. So NINDS and the National Institute of Aging have focused on vascular cognitive impairment, dementia, as an approach that interacts with all the other neurodegenerative diseases associated with dementia. And they've decided to focus on this. And you can see associated with the types of injuries to the brain associated with a disease of the peripheral cardiovascular and central cerebrovascular systems. And this is a slide from the person heading up the VCID portion of the ADRD, or the Alzheimer's disease-related disorders summit. And we're interested, and Allison mentioned that we're going to be working on some aspects of biomarkers, both in terms of circulating cells, exosomes, and we're going to be looking in the brain and trying to think about ways of testing. So next slide would be, okay. So this is a slide from Rod Corvo, and he's the NINDS leader of ADRD. And I borrowed the slide just to show the complexity of what we're dealing with in terms of injury, the changes in the peripheral and the central immune system that are involved, the activation of microglia. Some of our interests include trying to understand the changes in the phenotypes of these cells and how they contribute to growing infarct, as the blood supply is shut off, hypoxia and hypoperfusion, and long-term effects on recovery, how these effects can be modified in the long term. And a lot of what occurs right off the bat in brain injury of many types has to do with the blood-brain barrier, leakiness, changes in tight junctions, molecules come in, cells come in, activate the microglia, start a process. Astrocytes are altered too in polarity. We don't understand much about that yet. And of course, this is related to the peripheral vascular changes associated with insulin, blood glucose regulation, lipids, athero, etc. And there's a whole idea of proteinopathies and how aberrantly folded proteins are removed from the brain. And there could be avenues associated with extracellular space and collection in the glial lymphatic systems that can be tied in. So I'm just thinking out loud and just thinking about ways maybe we can work together, because there's quite a bit of money associated with this. There's going to be allocation and a lot of RFAs coming out, and I'll go through some of that. But I just want to mention that clinically, Alzheimer's disease, it's a vascular disease is a component in almost all cases. Also, some of the markers associated with the proteinopathies are similar between the different dementias. And this is one of the reasons why NINDS makes such an important emphasis on this, for us to understand it, and how they're having these every 2 to 3 years between NINDS and NIA. They have these meetings, these summits, where they have the experts come in. Everybody sits around the table. It's really quite a thing to witness for me. I was never involved in anything like that before. So it was great, and it's important to mention that reducing risk factors can decrease dementia risk. And many studies have shown this. Even a recent study now, Sprint Mind study, where they were changing the degree of hypertension control from 140 to 120. And even that decrease in systolic pressure was quite significant over a 3-year period. And now they've identified ways to extend trials to show how cardiovascular health and hypertension reduction can improve outcome in terms of dementia. So there's research going on, and some of it we're doing, neuronal, glial, vascular, and inflammatory, immune, metabolic, and brain perfusion. White matter injury is a big focus, because the white matter is in an area where there's quite a bit of vascular risk and hypoperfusion that occurs even with mild changes in perfusion, and significant hypoxia starts to break down the blood-brain barrier there. Cells come in, you get the white matter hyperintensity, but you get that not only in cerebral vascular disease, you get it in Alzheimer's disease. It's an early marker. So I include this slide, and I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to distribute the slides, but if you want to look at it, I can send it to you. Just let me know. But each day of the conference is here. There's an introduction by the director of NINDS, which is a nice summary of what's to come, and then each of the days and each of these topics are listed. First and foremost, from my point of view, is vascular contributions. But then the involvement in AD and frontotemporal degeneration, Lewy body, Parkinson's, multiple etiology dementias is a big area and always includes vascular pathology. Recently, TBI and COVID-19 have been included and discussed, and priorities on the reviews, highlights, and summaries, and then recommendations will be revised by NINDS and then resent to the council, and then all these will result in RFAs. And there's several coming out. A couple have already come out. I missed one on single-cell transcriptomics. Just missed the deadline on it. But we're working towards creating some data for the next one. So let me know if you want to take a look at this. And so the majority of all dementias of mixed or multiple etiology, mainly AD-like, with plaques and tangles.
One more minute.
Okay, gotcha. Just the last slide. With CVD and Lewy bodies. Opportunities for downstate discovery of risk factors, markers, and biological mechanisms causally related to cognitive impairment and dementia have to be studied under different experimental conditions in different populations. It's essential. There's clearly an area for us to do what's going on in terms of how different populations of humans are treated, and bring it into the whole realm of the School of Public Health, in addition to basic and translational science and clinical studies. Mechanistic translational and clinical synergy among brain disorders and neurodegenerative diseases. It's obvious from the data that we're seeing now and from the focus on this by world experts in the area of brain disease. We must consider a focus on how combinations of pathologies converge. We're in the middle of trying to understand how models of Alzheimer's disease merge with models of cerebral vascular disease to produce cognitive impairment and dementia. I'm working together with Ivan Hernandez on that now. I was working with Herman Moreno until he died. So the ADRD research will synergize many types of research technologies. If we're aware, genomics and transcriptomics in our own Genomics Health Institute is really critical for us to understand RNA-seq, what's going on in terms of the phenotypes in cells associated with evolving injury and then recovery from injury, metabolomics that is going on, and the link. We link our teamwork throughout the graduate school, College of Medicine, and School of Public Health. I think could come in on this and really make some interesting combinations of work that can answer new questions, provide new knowledge. So we have to be cognizant of these RFAs. Thank you.